So, in this clip, we're going to see Lee McGowan, PoliticsGirl, push back hard against a Donald Trump ally after a pretty questionable comparison and a weak argument overall. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. If you're enjoying it as we go, make sure to hype the video and give it a thumbs up. I'll share my thoughts, commentary, and perspective at the end. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight in.
Tonight, what exactly is the timeline for when this war with Iran will be over? So far, we've heard weeks, not months. We've heard soon. We've even heard that it's already over. But now Trump has a new answer for that question.
When it's over, and I don't think it's going to be long, when it's over, this is going to bounce right back so fast.
When are you going to know when it's over?
When I feel it.
Okay.
I feel it in my bones.
When he feels it in his bones.
And COVID will be over by Easter.
How are the rest of us supposed to know?
Yeah, I think the president needs to be more disciplined when he's doing these interviews and stay on message. I think when he's done videos where he's reading prompter, where he's sticking to his talking points, I think that's the most effective way. We need to hear him communicate more to the American people, but making kind of vague statements like that is not helpful. I understand, I think the argument they would make is that they don't want to telegraph a specific timeline to the enemy. But again, I think you can be a little bit more disciplined and on message than he was in that interview.
Okay.
I mean, I think he plays pretty fast and loose with other people's lives and money. And I think that's where we are here. I think, he's always said things off the cuff. Like I was saying earlier, he said COVID would be done by Easter. That was just off his top of his head. He said he would know when things were bad based on his own morality, which made many of us nervous. I think that's the reason we go through Congress for wars, because if you're going to be spending our money and our lives in a conflict, it should go through our representatives, which it didn't. And now there's one person making these huge decisions for everyone, and he's doing it based on his bones.
And every day it's a little bit different. I mean, he was asked tonight by a reporter about he talks about unconditional surrender that he wants from Iran. What does that mean? Here's what he said.
Still expect unconditional surrender, and what does that mean?
Well, to me, it means very simply that we are in a position of dominance that nobody's ever seen before. And whether or not they're able to say the words or whether or not they're able to even fight.
It's just so vague. And I think, you could argue right now we are in a position of incredible dominance over Iran. Could we end it today? Could we end it tomorrow? Where are we headed?
Well, we want Iran to be completely militarily decapitated, unable to export terror to the region and to Americans who live abroad and are threatened shipping lanes. We want Iran to not be a menace. They've been a menace for 47 years. Americans have paid for it with their lives every single decade under every president. That's where this ends, is a decapitated Iran.
I want to go back. How will we know that? Is it that when the Strait of Hormuz is opened again? Is it when they stop sending off missiles? Is it? Well, how will we even know? I think this is where there's a gap here between even for Iran to know, how do they stop this thing? Well, if they wanted to surrender, how would they surrender?
I don't want the president to outline exactly to Iran what his timeline is to get in, out, or do anything. But I will say I don't think he should be answering questions every single day and multiple times a day. I mean, Joe Biden was nearly dead, and that's why we didn't see him for weeks at a time answer questions. Here we go again. And so I think President Trump should be a little more restrained in how often he speaks to the press about these things, and then do so deliberately and not on the tarmac of an airport.
But he's not. You all can talk about how you want him to be more disciplined and restrained, but he's never been that way. He never will be. We know who he is. And, he said unconditional surrender from the beginning. Everybody knows what unconditional surrender means. The Japanese gave us unconditional surrender of World War II. They capitulated. They quit. They stopped fighting. They gave up. That's not what's happening in Iran. It's not going to happen in Iran.
Unless we do the same thing to them.
Well,
yeah.
Which,
well,
Well, look, we should not do, for the record.
Josh, let me ask you this, because Trump was asked about the objectives in the war and how it might compare to what Prime Minister Netanyahu wants. Here's what he said.
Regularly, are you speaking with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and are your objectives the same in terms of ending the war?
Well, I think they might be a little different, I guess. They're a different country than we are. But he will tell you there's never been a power like the power of the United States.
There you go.
There you go. From the horse's
mouth.
mouth.
How does that work? I mean, are we running two parallel
I disagree with both of you. I think Trump should keep talking because we find out all sorts of interesting stuff all the time. And because the whole world is hanging on his every whim, I want to know what he's thinking. And what he did was acknowledge something that a lot of people have been reporting for a long time, which is that the U.S. and Israeli war objectives are diverging. And the longer this goes on, the more it seems that Trump wants to wrap it up and Bibi wants to keep going, okay? And that the Israelis have certain objectives in terms of what they want to see in a future Iran. And Trump doesn't care about those things necessarily. He cares about more narrow objectives of military, maybe nuclear objectives, but not total regime change. That's a pretty big difference. That's not to say the two countries don't overlap or they don't fight well together or they're not great militaries who are great at shooting.
Isn't their objective both the same?
But Trump said it. So now
no Hamas,
are you
no
going to deny that U.S. and Israel have diverging views? Do you agree with Trump?
I think their two objectives are to eliminate Iran as the source of terror and mayhem in the Middle East. That's their
how. So it's like if Trump says stop, it's over, we won, and the Israelis are like, no, we're not safe. The Israelis are going to keep going, and then the Iranians are going to keep going, and then what's going to happen? Then Trump's going to keep going.
Who pays for that?
The American taxpayer and the
American
Iranian people. But mostly the Iranian people on the ground who are getting killed, to be honest. They pay the civilians.
But if you are an American right now and Israel decides to keep fighting after America has shot, we are the ones that will pay for it.
Yes, our inflation will go up and their children will die.
How about the 46 Americans killed on 10/7 by Iranian funds? Did they pay for it? The 46 Americans killed in Israel on 10/7, did they pay for it? They paid for it. They paid for Iran. There are 46 Americans there. There were 8 taken into captivity. They paid for the American politicians' tolerance of Iran.
Can I ask you, this is the second time you've talked about Americans dying. You just said 68 Americans.
46 Americans.
46 Americans. But here's the thing. We're spending, what is it now, $3 billion a day?
Are you putting a price on those 46
lives?
No.
Here's what I'm going to say, so let me finish what I'm going to say, because obviously I'm not putting a price on those Americans' heads. What I'm saying is, you're saying 46 Americans died, so we should attack this country because they're a terror organization and we need to come and get them. I could tell you here at home, 68,000 Americans die a year because they don't have health insurance. So if we're going to spend billions of dollars on something, would it not make more sense to save American lives to spend it here on health care than bombing another country overseas?
It's the job of the United States government.
But what I'm saying is, if you're going to start saying American lives are specific, 47 people died, and this is worth going to war for, I would say 68,000 people die a year here, and that would be worth investing in as well.
By the way, you're looking at the vast majority goes to entitlements,
no,
Medicare,
the vast majority
Medicaid.
goes to the military budget.
Okay, you can actually...
Once you have a policy of eliminating all of our enemies, you're calling for war on North Korea, China, Russia,
okay.
And that is
I think the difference with Iran is that it's the largest
Let's back away from we have to eliminate all of our
enemies.
No, we have to manage the threats with the resources that we have.
We've spent 47 years attempting to manage Iran with rhetoric.
One thing, Donald Trump said no more wars, no forever wars.
He also said Iran could never have a nuclear weapon.
And you two are both saying, now let's go to war, and we're all in. So which is it?
I'm a hawk. I was a hawk then, I'm a hawk now.
But Donald Trump is not consistent, and you guys aren't helping out.
Brad has probably been, way more consistent.
More consistent than Trump.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
coming up next, retribution.
I'll be honest, moments like that are incredibly frustrating to watch. You could clearly see what he was trying to do. It came off like a trap question rather than a genuine attempt to have a real discussion. And this is something you often see in these kinds of exchanges, where the goal isn't to understand the other side, but to create a gotcha moment for the audience. What Lee McGowan, PoliticsGirl, did well there was not falling into that trap. Instead of getting pulled into a misleading framing, like putting a price on Americans, she redirected the conversation toward actual policy and real-world impact. One of the bigger points you're raising is about consistency. There's often a strong emphasis on protecting lives in certain contexts, especially in foreign policy debates, but then less agreement when it comes to domestic issues like healthcare or social support systems. That contrast is something a lot of people notice and debate heavily. You also mentioned the scale of spending. Whether or not people agree on exact numbers or priorities, there's a long-running argument in U.S. politics about balancing defense spending with domestic investment, things like health care, infrastructure, and cost of living. It's a debate that cuts across party lines, even if the solutions differ. And on messaging, yes, politicians across the spectrum sometimes shift their tone depending on the situation. Supporters will call that adaptability. Critics will call it hypocrisy. That tension is a big part of why these debates get so heated to the end of the day. Clips like this resonate because people are less interested in slogans and more interested in consistency, clear priorities, and policies that actually improve lives. What matters most to viewers is whether the arguments hold up when you really examine them. Curious. Do you think moments like this actually change people's opinions, or do they mostly reinforce what viewers already believe?